Deadpool was shaped to be one of Marvel's most chaotic, self-aware films, but what if they did something different? What if Deadpool didn't just joke about the MCU's problems, he actually killed it? Hey, hello everyone, and welcome back to Austin Talk. No, sorry, that's weird. AustinPlus commentary. And today we are discussing another hypothetical. What if Deadpool killed the MCU?
What did he say?
Now, if you're not familiar, Deadpool actually killed the Marvel Universe in a very long-running comic. So I'm basically basing this whole idea of what if Deadpool Wolverine wasn't the story that it actually presented, and instead it was a combination of them killing and resetting the MCU. So without further ado, let's get into it. First thing we really need to understand is that Deadpool is basically a meta weapon. Deadpool has always existed outside of the normal rules of superhero storytelling. He breaks the fourth wall, mocks the studio, and openly criticizes franchise fatigue, making him uniquely positioned to comment on the MCU itself, which he did in the Deadpool Wolverine movie. Unlike other characters, Deadpool can acknowledge reboots, retcons, and corporate decisions without breaking immersion. This makes the perfect weapon to destruct the MCU from the inside, not through power, but through awareness. And I think the most important factor is comedy as well. Now, in saying that, there is obviously going to be consequences of what killing the MCU actually means. Killing the MCU wouldn't mean destroying every character or ending every superhero films entirely. Instead, it would symbolize the end of the current formula, interconnected overload, and endless teases and content for storytelling. Deadpool's killing the MCU could represent the collapsing of the multiverse, severing continuity ties, or just outright mocking the dismantling and shared universe structure, forcing Marvel into a creative reset rather than a clean continuation. Now, in order for this to happen, Deadpool would actually have to be present in the MCU. Now, Deadpool only made his proper debut in the MCU during the Deadpool Wolverine movie. Now, I'm not saying that Wolverine couldn't have starred in this movie, but why would have Deadpool Wolverine would have been the perfect place to do all of this? Because that's when, at that point, they had already basically sunk. Deadpool Wolverine already exists at the crossroads for a legacy with Marvel and Fox properties and the modern MCU. Both of them have reached a crossroads where Fox and Marvel are starting to deteriorate. Wolverine is a good representation that the past is a grounded, character-driven storytelling, while Deadpool embodies the chaos and meta-commentary. But placing a massive franchise shift inside a Deadpool movie softens the blow even just a tiny bit. Audiences would accept something radical here more than a traditional Avengers film, because chaos is part of basically the whole brand, which I think is definitely Deadpool driven, but I think it would have also been a perfect opportunity if Deadpool and Wolverine was basically to do with that. If you're not familiar with my point so far, I'm saying that this whole thing should be a whole reboot or reset, shall we say. Marvel have been discussing a reboot for a long time, but I think it would have been a good idea if they started with it now and then opened with a new story, or even a tiny little retcon of the whole universe would have been good. But I think Deadpool is the person to do it. But how would this reset actually affect the MCU? If Deadpool kills the MCU, Marvel could use as a narrative excuse to simplify basically everything. Characters could be reintroduced without decades of baggage, storylines could refocus on the quality over quantity, and future projects wouldn't constantly reference 10 other shows. That's one thing I think was wrong with the stuff I said in yesterday's video, is that everything seems to be coming down to the fact that they basically have to refer to, say, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel. Everything has a tie, and that is good, yes, because it makes them significant. However, you can't basically add it onto 15 different strands. Instead of a soft reboot that confuses audiences, this would be a self-aware in-universe explanation, one that openly acknowledges the franchise's flaws while moving forward still. Now, I think if we're really talking in depth here, you obviously have to realize that there is definitely risk going into this. There is definitely going to be a backlash from audiences, definitely. But what could this actually bring up if the risk of actually going this far and killing the MCU? I think the biggest risks, as I've just said, is alienating fans who are still invested in the MCU's ongoing stories. Killing the universe would, even symbolically, could just feel dismissive and chaotic if not handled carefully. There is also a danger of leaning too heavily into the meta humor. I understand that, mainly because I know some people think that the overdone humor for Deadpool is a bit, as I said, overdone. However, I mean, to be fair, I disagree. I love all of his humor. But if the moment lacks emotional weight, it risks feeling like a joke rather than a meaningful turning point, which I think is why Deadpool and Wolverine is perfect for their both introduction into the MCU. Now, I think the biggest debate with this whole what if idea is, would this actually save or destroy Marvel? Which is a good question in turn, because it's one or two ways. This move could either reignite excitement or permanently fracture audiences' trust. If executed with clarity and purpose, it could be the boldest creative reset Marvel have ever attempted. But if it comes first across as desperate or cynical, it could confirm fears that Marvel no longer knows what it wants to be, which again is something I'm completely understanding with, but the difference lies entirely in its intent, because intent, I think, is one of the biggest problems with Marvel right now, is because they intend to introduce new characters, but they absolutely bottle it with the types of story and the other characters that they bring along with it to give it significance. They overdo it, yes, and while this idea is the definition of overdoing it, I think it's a necessity, and I think it would be a good film. Now, speaking of necessities, why might this exact idea be what Marvel needs? Marvel have reached a point where playing it safe is no longer feels safe. A radical shift led by a character designed to challenge the system might be the only way forward. Everyone appreciates Deadpool in terms of Marvel fans, so I think they would actually take this with a tiny bit pinch of salt. But Deadpool killing the MCU wouldn't be an ending. I think that's the one point I need to get across. It would be an admission that the franchise needs to evolve, not expand. So, in saying all that, in everything I have just said, what if Deadpool really did kill the MCU? If Deadpool truly ended the MCU in Deadpool and Wolverine's rather than the story that we actually got, it could mark the end of an era. Not through failure, but through self-awareness. It would be Marvel acknowledging its limits, laughing at itself, and choosing re-innovation over exhaustion. And honestly, that might be the most Deadpool thing in the MCU that they could ever do. It wouldn't be the death of Marvel, it would be the death of a business as usual. And sometimes that's exactly what a franchise needs to survive. But what if Deadpool killed the MCU? How would you feel about it? Let me know in the comments below. But without further ado, folks, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and comment what else you would like to see on this channel. But without further ado, hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one, folks. Bye.
Yeah.